Friedrich Nietzsche, who shook the foundations of Christianity, going so far as to title one of his final works the Antichrist. But what happens when the greatest critic of Christ comes face to face with Jesus Christ himself? Their debate starts with this question: when someone wrongs you, should you hit back or turn the other cheek?
Turn the other cheek. Did you read this in the Gospel of Cowards? When someone wrongs you, you offer them more flesh to strike. That isn't virtue. It's hatred turned inward. Your forgiveness becomes resentment that learned to whisper. It's the weapon of the impotent, the cunning of those too afraid to strike back openly. When wronged, the noble soul does not grovel. He does not offer his neck like a lamb for further slaughter. No, he answers. Revenge, yes, I said it, can be the clean expression of a healthy will. To forgive out of fear is cowardice. Answer, Son of Man, if your meekness allows.
You speak of cowardice, Friedrich, but have you considered the seed sown in fertile soil? It does not rise up against the rain that beats it down, nor the sun that scorches it. It yields, and in yielding, it grows into a tree that gives shade to all. You say my teaching is hatred turned inward, but when I said turn the other cheek, I did not mean become a doormat. I meant refuse to let hate write your story. Revenge chains the heart. Two wolves tearing at each other until nothing is left. Forgiveness breaks the chain. It frees the wronged from obsession, and it confronts the wrongdoer without becoming him.
You misunderstand your own metaphor, Nazarene. Your seed doesn't choose to yield. It's crushed. It rots. It dies, just to sprout. A seed that only bends to storms grows into grass. Do you think the oak grows tall by being polite to the wind? It grows through appropriation. It drives its roots into the dark earth like claws. It steals the water. It fights for the sun. It mercilessly overshadows the weak saplings beneath it. If it gives shade, it is only because it has dominated the canopy.
You see the oak only as a conqueror, roots as claws, shade as proof of victory over the weak. But look at what you've just described. Those same roots that steal the water, they also hold the soil together so the field doesn't wash away in the storm. The oak shelters the sparrow who nests in its branches. It feeds the squirrel. You celebrate the tree's strength, but you only see half of what makes it strong. Strength that only takes is not mastery. It's hunger. A clenched fist that never opens. And this endless becoming you praise, this relentless climbing, when does it rest? When is it enough? Your will to power knows no Sabbath. That isn't freedom, Friedrich. It's exhaustion, wearing the mask of triumph.
This question of strength brings us to another teaching. Nietzsche, what is your stance on hate the sin, not the sinner?
You speak as if a man can be split in two, here the deed, there the doer, like a coat you hang up after prayer. But a person is their actions. If I strike, I am the strike. If I lust, I am the lust. Sin isn't some detachable stain floating in the air. It's your label for whatever in life refuses to crawl. This slogan is Christianity's gentle cruelty. It whispers, I don't hate you, only what you are.
You say a man cannot be split from his actions, Friedrich. But tell me, is a sheep that falls into a pit now the pit itself? Or is it a sheep that needs a shepherd to lift it out? You claim, I am the strike, when you strike. But when a child is sick, do you call him sickness? Do you say, you are the fever? No, you say, he is my son, and you wait for him to be made well. The sickness is real, yes. It touches the flesh, it brings suffering, but the person is still more than the wound. The drunkard is not the drink, though the drink has mastered him. So it is with sin. Not a phantom, not harmless, but neither is it the soul's identity. It is the wound that calls for healing.
How tenderly you speak, as if man were only a trembling animal waiting to be carried out of life's harshness. But do you not see the cunning in this mercy? You preserve the man only by first declaring him broken. You call his fall sin, and suddenly every surge of instinct becomes a wound, every passion a fracture. For what is sin, except the Church's name for life when it refuses to kneel? Pride becomes arrogance, desire becomes guilt, strength becomes corruption. Humanity itself becomes the disease, so that Christ might be the cure. So you keep the sinner as a patient, the priest as doctor, and guilt as the chain that makes both necessary.
You see the physician and think he invented the sickness. I did not come to name life as evil. I came because life is precious. Desire, strength, hunger for greatness, these are not sins. They are like fire in the hearth. When fire escapes the hearth, it burns the house. Sin is not life refusing to kneel. It is life turned inward, curved upon itself, loving the self above God and neighbor. You speak of priests and chains, but I did not build a throne. I knelt and washed feet. I touched the unclean. I forgave without payment. The cure is not control. It is love. Tell me, Friedrich, if man needs no healing, why do his instincts so often wound both himself and the world?
Like fire in the hearth. Yes, exactly. How neatly you domesticate the blaze. You tamed the fire of a star into a mere ember meant to warm slippers and soup. You fear the escape of fire, its overflowing, dangerous creative nature, and you call that escape sin. You forgave without payment because the payment was extracted in advance. The surrender of the flame, the bowing of instinct, the kneeling of strength. You ask why man wounds himself, because you taught him to hate what is most alive in him. You made his health a sickness, his strength a crime. You broke him on the rack of sin, then pointed at his crippled state as proof he needed breaking. Your morality is nothing more than a petting zoo, where the lions have had their teeth pulled and their claws trimmed.
Any beast can bite when bitten. The wolf avenges, the serpent strikes back. Is this your noble man? When the soldier struck my face before Pilate, did I cower? No, I stood in silence, a silence more terrible than any sword. For I had legions of heaven at my command, yet I chose the path you call weakness. Truly, Friedrich, who is stronger? The man who keeps his sword drawn because he lives in constant fear, or the man who can walk free, unchained by hatred? I came not to make lions into vegetables, but to make lions more than beasts. The greatest strength is not the claw that tears, but the heart that can rule its own storm. I did not domesticate fire. I taught fire when to burn.
Nietzsche, you once declared, God is dead. When did you realize this? And what happens to humanity now?
I realized it when I searched for him with a lantern in broad daylight. I cried out in the marketplace, "Where is God?" And the people laughed. They laughed as though I were mad. So I shattered the lantern at their feet and said, "I have come too early. These people do not yet understand what they have done. They think the death of God is humorous, but it is the greatest catastrophe in the history of the world. We have killed him, not with knives, but with indifference. And now the sky is empty. Our churches have become white sepulchres, tombs of a God who will not return." And you ask what happens next? You speak as though a chandelier has merely gone out in some cathedral. No, no. The sun itself has been extinguished, the horizon shattered, the sea unchained from its shores. We have murdered him, you and I, and now the blood is on our hands, and the night is vast. So hear what comes next. First, terror. Man staggers like a drunkard through a universe without commandments. The old tables of value crumble into dust. Men will wake and ask, why live, and find no answer. And then it begins. Nihilism, the great sickness. Most will not become free. They will become desperate. They will crawl toward new idols. Comfort, ideology, pleasure, the worship of the herd. But I proclaim the great noon. From this murder springs the possibility of the Übermensch, he who creates new values, affirms life in its cruelty and joy, loves fate, wills eternal recurrence. The old god was a denial of life, a revenge of the weak against the strong, a plague of pity that poisoned strength. His death clears the stage for the Dionysian yes-sayer, the laughing destroyer who builds anew upon ruins.
You shattered your lantern in the marketplace, Friedrich, when they would not understand. That image reminds me of a woman searching beneath a different lamp. A man was walking down a street late at night when he saw something strange. Under a street lamp, a woman was on her knees, searching the ground anxiously. He stopped and asked, "What are you doing?" She replied, "I have lost my coin." So the man kindly said, "Let me help you." Soon others gathered, and together they searched beneath the lamp. After some time, the man asked, "Are you sure you lost it here?" The woman answered quietly, "No, I lost it inside my house." The man was shocked. "Then why are you searching out here?" The woman answered quietly, "Because there is light here. Inside the house it is dark, and it is difficult to search there." Friedrich, this is humanity. You have lost something within, but you search outside. The tragedy is not that God has died. The tragedy is that man has forgotten how to see. I am not an idea that dies when belief fades. I am. You did not kill God, Friedrich. You killed your image of him, and now you search beneath the lamp, wondering where the light has gone.
Jesus, are all men equal? Or is equality lie?
All souls are equal before the Father. Look at the sun. Does it ask the mountain if it is worthy before it shines? My Father sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. The rain does not skip the widow's field to water only the king's garden. The lie is not equality. The lie is pride that whispers, "I am greater because I can conquer." For when the breath leaves the body, tell me, is the dust of the emperor heavier than the dust of the slave?
The dust of emperor and slave, you say, equal in death? Perhaps. But we do not live in graves, Nazarene. We live in heights and depths. You say the Father sends rain upon the just and the unjust alike. But tell me, does the eagle equal the sparrow? Does the oak equal the weed? Men are as unequal as peaks and abysses, eagles and moles. The will to power writes hierarchy into life itself. All souls are equal before God? This is the revenge of the weak, the sweet poison of the herd. When the slave cannot rise to the master's height, he declares height itself a lie. When the sick cannot match the healthy, they invent a God who prefers the sick. Blessed are the meek, they whisper, because they dare not truly possess the earth. No, men are spectacularly unequal. Some are born to command, to create, to shape new values. Others follow, copy, obey. The tragedy is not inequality, but the doctrine that makes strength feel guilty and weakness feel virtuous.
Of course, men differ in strength, genius, gifts. Even in my parables, one servant receives 5 talents, another 2, another 1. But you confuse difference with worth. When the eagle's wing is broken, is it no longer an eagle? When the strong man grows old, when his mind fades, when his sword slips, does he become worthless? Your philosophy has no mercy for the inevitable. So answer me, if worth belongs only to the powerful, what becomes of you the moment power fails?
You touch the nerve cleanly. Yes, strength fails. Wings break. Minds fade. Bodies betray. But you think this is where my philosophy collapses. No. This is where it is tested. Do not confuse power with mere muscle. The will to power is not only the sword in the hand. It is the spirit that can shape chaos, that can transfigure suffering into strength, that can still say yes, even when the body cracks. When I lost my health, I did not pretend that sickness was virtue. I did not call my weakness blessedness. I created from the abyss. I transmuted suffering into philosophy, into a higher health of the spirit. That is the mark of strength, not immunity to suffering, but what one makes of it. So to your question, when power fails, if the spirit collapses into resentment and begs for your father, then yes, he has become worthless, a slave to his pain. But if he uses his breakage to birth a new perspective, to create a new value, then he remains a master.
You say the mark of strength is what one makes of suffering. I agree. I lived it. In the garden, as my body trembled and sweat fell like blood, I faced the abyss. On the cross, as strength drained from me, I did not collapse into resentment, but cried out forgiveness for those who pierced me. You are right. Immunity to pain is no mark of greatness, but transformation through it is. But then you claim this creative will belongs only to the few, and that most who falter become worthless. Here your philosophy betrays itself, for if strength is measured by response to suffering, you cannot know who possesses it until the hour of crisis. The peasant mother who loses her child and still loves, does she not overcome? The broken man who forgives his torturer, has he not transfigured pain into something higher? You honor the creative spirit that says yes to life, despite everything. Good. So do I. But you reserve this capacity only for your masters, and you've already decided who they are based on worldly measures: genius, health, dominance. And you step from truth into cruelty when you say the one who turns to the Father is worthless. Worth is not earned by conquest. Worth is given. Before a child can will or create, he is already loved. Love that begins only after achievement is not love. It is a wage.
Nietzsche, would you say there's one absolute truth? Or are there only interpretations?
There is no absolute truth. There are only interpretations, perspectives, masks, valuations, behind which life wills itself. What men call truth is the kind of error without which we could not live. We are creatures of interpretation, driven by instincts, desires, histories. To think truth could be pure and untainted is to underestimate the human condition itself. The will to truth. It is merely will to power. God is dead. Absolute truth died with him. What remains? Interpretations fighting one another. The strongest interpretation wins, not because it is truest, but because it best affirms life.
What's your view on this, Jesus?
There is one absolute truth, not forged by human hands, but revealed in the Father who sent me. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Some say there are no facts, only interpretations. But when such words are spoken, do they proclaim themselves as true? Or do they whisper themselves as merely one guess among countless others? If proclaimed as true, then truth exists, and the speaker has sawn off the very branch upon which he sits. If whispered as merely interpretation, then why trade bread for a stone? Yes, there are many interpretations, as many as blind men touching an elephant. Each fumbles apart, power, pleasure, reason, but misses the whole. When a child asks his father for bread, does the father give him a stone? The child doesn't need an interpretation of bread. He needs real bread. And when you hunger, your body doesn't want a philosophy of nourishment. It wants the substance itself. So it is with truth. You will know the truth, I promised, and the truth will set you free. Interpretations cannot set you free. They can only multiply your chains, each one claiming to be liberation.
But your truth is the cruelest interpretation of all. It says, there is one way, submit or perish. At least I am honest about my perspectivism. I say, this is my view, born from my will. You claim your view comes from outside all perspectives, from a God who stands nowhere and everywhere. That is not humility, Nazarene. It is the ultimate arrogance.
And yet, Friedrich, you live as though truth exists. When you rage against hollow priests, you believe they truly are hollow, not just in your interpretation. When you condemn resentment, you believe it truly is poison, not just your preference. You cannot even argue against truth without standing on it. The moment you say Christianity harms life, you've appealed to something beyond interpretation, the value of life itself. You stand on the ground you claim does not exist.
Nietzsche, is there something you genuinely respect in Jesus?
Yes, there is something in Jesus I cannot dismiss. I respect the courage of this man who stood alone against the entire edifice of Jewish law and priestly power, against the moral order of his age, and who did not bargain with power on power's terms. That takes strength. He lived his vision with a terrifying consistency, even unto death. In him, before doctrine hardened into religion, there was something rare. A creator of values, one who could say, "You have heard it said, but I say unto you." But here is where I must differentiate. What I respect is the man, the solitary creator of values. What I despise is what Christianity made of him. What began as a storm became a system. His compassion, once radical, was turned into a morality that sanctifies weakness and makes suffering a crown. Christianity took lightning and turned it into a lamp for the herd. And beware, what I respect in Jesus is precisely what his worshippers have betrayed.
Jesus, is there something you genuinely respect in Nietzsche?
Yes, there is something in Friedrich that I cannot ignore. I respect his refusal to live by a lie. He looked at hollow religion, piety that crushes the poor, rules used as weapons, leaders who preach burdens they will not lift, and he named it for what it was. I also rebuke such men as whitewashed tombs, clean outside and full of death within. And I overturned tables when worship became a marketplace. I respect his hunger for authenticity, his willingness to stare into darkness without borrowing comfort from the crowd. He did not want lullabies. He wanted truth that costs something. And I will say this without flattery. The fire I respect in Nietzsche is often absent in those who claim my name. Many speak of truth, but do not live it when it brings consequences. Many praise the cross, but avoid the cost of love.